Head over to merchya.com/United Kaiju Podcast and check out our new merch. Don't wait, get your UKP designs now.
Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to another episode of United Kaiju Podcast. And we have a very special guest with us today. We have Rosie Knight, the author behind Godzilla Monster Island Summer Camp. And
Wow.
I did a speed run of this book last night, and my daughter
Love it.
my daughter actually wanted to come and say hello to you.
Oh,
I might
I
try
would
to
be
get her down
honored.
here
Please.
at
That
some
book was
point
just
throughout.
the fact that you read it and your kid saw it and your kid liked it. That's the dream. Like, that's the point of the book.
This is exactly the type of book that I want to make. Not, I mean, well, not story wise, but the whole setup and everything.
Yeah, little
That's
graphic
what I'm aiming
novel
for.
vibe. It's good. It's having OGN like that as well, like an original graphic novel, is really good because it gets it into libraries and schools
Right.
and stuff like that. Whereas if you're doing a single issues, it's a lot harder to like get kids to read
Right.
it. Obviously, I love a single issue, so I would have loved to see it. But that little digest size, like, we're so happy with how it came out, and we're just so stoked by how
Yeah,
much
it's
support
great.
we've gotten.
It is.
Oliver
It is.
It's
absolutely
great.
smashed it. He's an incredible artist.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right,
But
so-
of course, Tony, you know what to do.
With that, we're going to task you with the phrase that pays, or the phrase that's going to get us a cease and desist from Legendary,
Legendary. Let's go.
whichever comes first. So, without further ado,
Okay.
Rosie, it's all on you.
I'm doing my best NPR voice.
Okay.
Daddy's home. Cake every night.
That was
And
the
with that-
calmest one I think we've heard for the past 4 years. That's
The
great.
episode,
NPR.
We've heard many
my mother
listens to
variations
NPR.
Love
of it, but that
It's
one was by
great.
far the best. That was
Um,
great. That was great.
All
Thank
right.
you.
Well, I'm gonna ask the gentleman if I can take the first question because
Go for it.
I need to know. So I'm curious to know if you got any inspiration with this from Godzilla's Revenge.
Okay.
Yes, there was Godzilla's Revenge inspiration. There was obviously
Sorry.
kind of like all your classic, like anything that had Manila in it, I was really like looking towards for like the monsters we chose. There was a couple of changes. Like originally I wanted to have Hedorah be one of the monsters who came and said like, hey, thank you for this. You think it's this scary moment. But it was really funny because the guy at Toho, who is amazing, his name's Aaron, and he's just such a chill guy. He's so supportive of all these weird stories. But he was also like, Rosie, he's like, Hedorah loves pollution. Like, he's never going to be
Right.
thanking them
That's
for
what
stopping fracking. I
I
know.
was
I
gonna-
was like, in my head, I was like, look, wouldn't that make the biggest statement? Because even Hedorah is like, oh, fracking is bad. But Aaron was like, don't do it, bro. He was like, that's not, he's like, he wouldn't do it. And I was like, okay. It was one of only like 3 notes Toho gave us on the script. So I was like, cool. And that ended up becoming King Caesar, which was really cool because
Wow.
Oliver
Yeah,
really
that
wanted
was-
to draw King Caesar. So it was cool to see him in his
He
style.
did a fantastic job, too.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
mean, he looks like it's a
Yeah.
gorgeous
Yeah.
work of art right there. Like I couldn't.
Yeah. It's
The
I was
back-
like, oh my god, it looks.
The back
If
cover
only
is dope,
Final
too.
Wars looked like that.
the dream, right? We have definitely like, we've gotten a lot of really cool feedback from people who are just like desperate for us to, they're like, can you turn it into like an anime? Like, is Toho going to make an animated series out of this? And obviously it's work for hire, so I have no say in that. But
Yeah.
obviously we would love that. And I love Oliver's art is very, very anime inspired. So I really like that people could kind of pick up that vibe and then want to extrapolate on it and see more, because we had so much fun making this book. Like, but obviously also Oliver Ono, the artist of this book, incredible artist, one of my best friends, he is now actually working on the new Godzilla line that got announced recently,
Oh, wow.
which is kind of this
wow.
like the interconnected Godzilla universe that IDW is kind of working on. So that's going to be his big focus for the next. So I'll just keep thinking of my weird stories, because this is something people I think don't know about these kind of comics, which is fun because it's fun to explain them. Is like, Toho didn't go to IDW and say, hey, can you get pictures on Manila? Toho came to IDW and was like, hey, we need comics. Like, what do you know, they have this deal. And I was like, oh, well, what if we did like a Manila comic? And then the editor at the time was like, well, I think Toho wants to do kids comics, so why don't you pitch something with Manila and see if we can get it greenlit? And that was how Monster Island Summer Camp came up. So it's very much like my own weird love for Manila. I have a Manila tattoo. Like, that is what fueled the book. And there he is, the baby. Yeah, I've got my little, he's upside down here, but you can see on my wrist I have a Manila. Yeah.
Wow.
A good little ugly boy.
I love it. No, it's, I think it's great to have a wide range of tones, right? Like, this is more of your, it gets silly, it gets a little, man, it gets, instead of like just constant brawls. And of course we all want to see the brawls and whatnot.
Yeah.
Like, who doesn't?
I love fighting the brawl. I love writing the brawls too. Like in our Godzilla versus Batra issue, we got to do this crazy double page spread, and it was Godzilla with the, as we are now supposed to call it, heat ray, but we all know it used to be called the atomic breath. But in America, it's the heat ray. And then Batra's like cosmic blast, and they're like exploding in the middle of the page. And I love that page so much. And it's kind of funny because I was like so concerned with getting like the American summer camp feel, because I never went to summer camp. That doesn't really exist in England, and if it does, it's probably for rich people. But I was like, I've seen it in so many movies, like I want to capture that feeling. And it was so funny because it was only when the book was finished that I was like, oh, there's like no monsters fighting in this book. But I was like, you know what, you still get a lot of monster action, so you still, and I thought that was, I've been really pleasantly surprised, because like definitely people have mentioned that in reviews and been like, this has like less monster fights than you would expect. But it is usually couched in a review that otherwise is like very positive. So I appreciate it. And also it's a funny tone to balance, because this was released as a middle grade book. So it's like your, 8 to 11 year olds.
Yeah.
But as the book kind of changed, as we were working on it, because we worked on this book for like 2.5 years, it kind of started to, I think, lean a bit more like YA, like young adult, not necessarily with any of the content, but just the way that the characters interact, the age of the characters. It's very hard to get a middle grade book going that has like teenage characters. But luckily, because IDW is kind of in the comic book publishing business rather than the book publishing business, they just kind of were like, cool, it's middle grade, let's go with it. And I've had a lot of feedback from teachers and librarians being like, you are so lucky you got it categorized as middle grade, because a librarian or a teacher will always buy a middle grade book, even for an older classroom, but they will never buy a YA book for a younger classroom. So I think that was like another unintended consequence that just kind of widened our audience.
Well, that explains why I had such trouble reading it, the high level grade reading there. No,
I'm just extremely dense writer. Like the amount of edits I had to go through, so it wasn't
like,
just
what
like
does that
text.
word say? Oh man, but it did. Like being someone who went to summer camp, like I definitely got that sense of nostalgia of being at summer camp, meeting people and just exploring around the woods and all that type of stuff. So it really took me back. I was like, I kind of felt a little sad because I was like, oh man, I'm 40. I'm never going to summer camp ever again. So it was like, damn it. But it was a good feeling, because I was like, you know what? This is really cool. This relates to me in every possible way. So I think for someone who didn't go to summer camp, I would say you fucking nailed it.
Thank you. I watched a lot of fucking summer camp movies.
Did you watch Wet Hot American Summer?
I did watch Wet Hot American Summer. Obviously, that's a classic. I'm a big horror movie head, which is like,
cheers.
I really, really want to do more horror. And honestly, I did a kids horror comic a few years ago that was released by Capstone that was called The Haunted High Tops, and it was kind of like a Twilight Zone-esque story. And that was really cool, but I've never gotten to do like a straight horror. But me and Oliver do have a project that will be out later this year that is like, it's a short story, but it is a horror story. So a lot of my understanding of summer camp also comes from like Friday the 13th movies.
Yeah.
So like everyone's
Right.
living in like a busted ass cabin, and
Yep.
and there was
It was the vibes.
it was the vibe. Like, and one of the things that did really inspire me as well is, I don't know if you guys remember this movie, but I never saw it till a few years ago, and it was like always on my mind because I think it's so good. There's this movie called Heavyweights. It's like an old Disney movie.
Oh,
the
yeah,
camp.
Yeah, and it's
camp.
it's like a fat camp, but then like this Ben Stiller comes
Ben
and tries
Stiller,
to take
he's
it
this
over.
Raging steroid like camp director, and
Yeah.
he's like,
Yeah.
"You're gonna get pumped."
And
God, I do remember that movie.
I just thought it was like such a cool idea, and kind of like in its own way, like a bit radical, because it was kind of like, actually it's fine to be fat, guys. You can just have a fun time at summer
Right.
camp. You don't have to do all this exercise. And I definitely was inspired by that kind of thing. But obviously in this situation, the evil is like way larger. And because it's Godzilla, you make it ecological.
Of course.
You know?
I love it.
Love it.
Who wants dibs next? All right, Tony.
Tony, go ahead.
So, as I said, I did a deep dive into your Instagram, and so far we are 11 minutes into recording, and yes, you are a professional yapper.
Yes,
and
correct.
I love it. It is refreshing, because sometimes it's hard to get guests to really, open up and give us, and you're giving it to us. But
thank you.
So earlier you was talking about the different fandoms, which I know you are a part of. You're a part of the Marvel fandom, Star Wars fandom, Godzilla fandom, and so am I.
Yeah.
And yes, the Godzilla fandom is very much different. We are, I think, Marvel and Star Wars has had material for forever, and we are just now getting to the point to where we're getting massive amount of Godzilla content, books, comics, movies, all here, toys,
everything.
all here stateside. And I want to know, which one of these fandoms are you most attracted to or have the most fun with? Because you've written for Marvel, right?
Yeah, I've written a lot about Marvel because I was like an entertainment journalist. I write for DC's official website, so I'm always on there. And then Star Wars was another thing. That was actually the first ever professional paid article I wrote, was at Nerdist, and it was like a May the 4th Star Wars piece about these old forgotten movies, the Ewoks movies that came out. Yeah, I love those movies because I love Ewoks. I just love a little guy.
Yes.
But, definitely for me, like, I love every kind of storytelling, and the comic book side and the movie side and all of that stuff. That is really like what I built my career on. Like, that's why we have X-Ray Vision, is because me and Jason just love talking about comics and comic book creators and stuff. But I will say, and I say this is not like controversial in my opinion, I do think the Godzilla fandom is like the purest, kindest, most welcoming fandom. And I do know that like some people haven't had that experience, because like I understand that the legendary fandom can sometimes get a little hot, kind of like Marvel and Star Wars. But generally, over the last few years, because my first Godzilla comic, Rivals versus Batra, that's got to be like 4 years ago now. Yeah. And from there, we've seen like this crazy explosion in like popularity of Godzilla, who's coming, how many people are coming to the signings, how many people are coming to the events. And it's been pretty incredible, because there's so many different people, all ages, babies, adults, grannies. Like, you got people who remember watching the original Godzilla movie, and now they're here with their grandkids and their kids. And to me, the Godzilla fandom has always been like incredibly supportive. Like, for example, something you can't do in like a Marvel fandom without causing an issue is like, if you rate your favorite MCU movies, right? That's going to become like a big drama, even though there's like so many of them. And I personally take a lot of heat, because like I love the Eternals and like a bunch of other movies that people don't really care about. And it's funny to have those discussions. But for example, I ranked all the Godzilla movies on Nerdist many years ago, like all 50 movies, American movies, Japanese movies, and believe there were some controversial spots in there. Like, I love all the late Showa stuff where it's really silly. I love Son of Godzilla. I love the kind of stuff. That was obviously a huge influence on the book and kind of the psychic nature of communication. So for me, like when I did that rating, all I saw was just people being like, whoa, this is such a cool rating. Like, it's not the same as mine, but I love to see a site doing this. Or like, oh, I love to see the Zillions getting so much love. Like, this is, and it always feels like whenever somebody in the Godzilla fandom sees something they don't agree with, they're always like, I respect your feeling on that, and here's why my feeling's different. And I'm like, whoa, guys, this is like so sweet and good. And like, we've gotten to, I do a legendary panel pretty much I've done it for the last 2 years, and I'll be there this year announcing a new project. And those panels are like ram packed. Like, they should be having them in bigger rooms. Like, every single time Legendary does that panel at San Diego Comic-Con, it's 200-300 people standing at the back. And people want to know, they love Dune, they love Pacific Rim, which they just announced they're coming back to, which is another kaiju property, obviously. But they love Godzilla. Like, they want to know, like, when is Jet Jaguar coming? Like, that was a big conversation. Like, not last year, but the year before, was people just being like, we want to see Jet Jaguar in the comics. And then that was able to happen during his anniversary, because obviously you're kind of like fighting for those kind of characters, and you have to work with licensing with Toho, and it's Toho America, and or as they call it, Toho International. So it's really cool, because I've just only ever found it to be like an incredibly supportive place, and I love being a part of it. I've been a Godzilla fan since I was a kid. I have tons of Godzilla toys, so to get to even play a little part in just like telling these stories in such a supportive environment, like I was saying to you guys before we started recording, but like, they're on Wikizilla, they will put the most unbelievably detailed, cool notes about these stories you write, and it just blows your mind, because you just feel like so blessed that somebody is so passionate about Godzilla that they're going to go on there. I mean, this was so funny, because the final page, it's a mild spoiler alert, but they also decided to put it on the inside of the front cover, so not that much of a spoiler, but like the final page is this future vision of Monster Island Summer Camp, where all monsters are available and can come, and you can speak to them, and you can hang out with them, and you can learn with them. And we put Mothman in there, right? Because we just thought it would be funny, and everyone loves Mothman. And I think I'd had a kid who'd mentioned something about Mothman. But now everyone on Wikizilla is like, okay, so Mothman's canon. Like, Mothman exists.
And they'll grab hold of that and run with it. Anything canon, forget about it.
And now it's like yeah, it's like canon. Mothman's canon, you know. And I love that, because obviously we have a lot of discussions just in general life, and in like my career, and the writing I do about canon, and what is canon, and who makes canon. And a lot of times what people don't realize is canon is actually made by the fans. Like Marvel 616, the way that they designate the main Marvel universe in the comics, and incorrectly in the movies, but like that came from an old Alan Moore story that nobody ever thought it was gonna take off and become this huge thing. It was a Captain Britain story. And then the fans were like, okay, well, that's the main universe. The fans grabbed it. The fans extrapolated on it. The fans started creating other Earths. And for so long, Marvel was like, there's no 616. We don't recognize that. And then like a few years ago, they were like, okay, we get it, 616. So I'm like, people don't realize that a lot of the canon is made by fans, and is made by what fans care about. So I'm like, if Wikizilla says Mothman is canon, I'm like, go for it, guys. Other Godzilla comic people, bring it in.
It's a great cryptid to have in there, though, because you know, like the kaijus are cryptids in a sense, you know. Yeah. So I think that's beautiful. Agreed.
It is. Absolutely.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Ramon, what you got?
So this is going to be an interesting question for you, as a Godzilla fan yourself. If someone would have come up to you and said, "Hi, Rosie, I am new to Godzilla. How would I start the journey? What advice would you give to a new coming Godzilla fan to start their journey? Would you give them, you know, a grounded, serious film, or would you give them something a little like fun, show a Godzilla film? How would you?
If I was like making a little package, like imagine if they were like, I have a little comic book shop in that I run in a craft market down in South LA, right? So like I love to make comics accessible. I used to work in a comic book shop. All my writing about movies is to make it accessible. Like that's what I want to do. So I love this question. I would definitely say if I was doing like a package, I'd be like, hey, you should read my book, because I did write it as I did write it with the dream of like a kid finding it and it being their first Godzilla. But I would say this is what I usually tell people when they ask me where they want to start. I do tell them to watch 1954, the original version, not the American version, because I do just think it has so much gravitas and emotion and establishes so much of what has now become this kind of pop cultural zeitgeist. And I do love that movie. And then I would probably recommend them to watch like Godzilla versus Biollante, because I think that is like a really, really great kind of coming together of some of the more campy ideas. Like, yeah, it's his daughter's soul in a rose that's mutated, but it's also just a badass monster fight movie. It has incredible designs. And you're getting into that more like these kind of era where you're doing stuff that's a little bit weirder. You know, you're doing stuff that's a little bit more high concept. And I just think those are like really good ways. Also, for kids, I do tell them to watch the American movies. Like, kids love those movies. I was hanging out last night at the craft market. It was one of our friends' kids' birthday. Zach, he's great. He's like just turned 4. He's amazing. He's so funny. And there was a girl there called Ophelia who was 7. And when someone mentioned her, Rosie, she writes Godzilla comics, and she was like, oh my God, I love Godzilla. And it was because she just watched Godzilla X Kong. And then now she was going back and like watching the other legendary movies. And then also like, then she was asking me like, should I watch the old ones? Like, are they worth watching? And I was thinking like, how cool is that nowadays you have a 7-year-old who's having probably the same experience that a 7-year-old had in 1954 when they first saw Godzilla.
Right.
So those are like my kind of instant roots. But also, like, some of my friends who aren't into it, I do show them, like, the weirder stuff, like Son of Godzilla, and be like, hey, look at this. This is, like, a weird thing somebody made. Like, you can make weird stuff, and even if it's maligned at the time, it will find its fandom, And we definitely are in, like, a Manila resurgence, which has been fun for me. But, yeah, those were probably... that would probably be my route of accessibility. But I do really think that 1954 movie is, like, it's just so incredible. Like, you can understand how it set up this entire franchise that we're still talking about, decades later. I got to see it at the cinema, and it just blew me away recently. Yeah. And I also got to see, they did a Shin Godzilla black and white, and then they did Godzilla -1 - color in the cinema here in LA at the Egyptian. And it was like unbelievable.
Oh, wow.
I would also say, again, professional yapping here, but like, I would also say the other side of it is like, I do feel like we're in a really good phase, because now if you've got parents, like, obviously I'm old enough to be a parent, but I don't have a kid, but like, you've got like our era of parents, like they're in their 60s, their 70s, whatever. They might have always thought Godzilla was nonsense and they don't understand it. But when you show them a movie like Godzilla -1, suddenly they're like, oh, okay, this is like a serious, incredible feat of filmmaking. Like, now I get why you like it. So I do feel like we're in a really great time for people discovering Godzilla.
Oh, yeah.
I tell my mom she needs to watch -1 because it really, and I even said it to her, like, I lost like my train of thought. I was like, wait, I'm watching a war movie. No, it's a Godzilla movie. Like, holy shit. And I'm like, you really need to watch it because it kind of broadens your horizon about how bad the kamikaze pilots were treated and what they went through and everything like that. Because obviously you don't get to ask one, hey man, what's going on in your mental state after all this? Because so it really played a great role in it, and I just think, yeah, I agree. I think we can talk about -1 here for days because we three, it's a masterpiece.
It's a masterpiece.
Oh, we do.
It is. So,
and it's funny enough because I told my mom to see -1 when it came out in theaters, and she was like, "There's no way you cried watching." I was like, "Mom, I'm telling you, bring tissues because it hits you in the heart."
Oh man, I cried so much watching that movie.
She never thought she would cry during a Godzilla movie, but she cried harder than anybody else in the theater. And like, my mom is like, she gets very emotional for certain scenes, but this is probably the most emotional I've ever seen her during the film. So I was like, Mom, how does it feel to get emotional while watching a Godzilla movie? And she was like, she couldn't believe it. She would refuse to answer my questions. Like, I told you. I try to warn you. You would think I'm being crazy. You think I was just blowing too much steam at it, but nope. I told you, bring tissues because you're gonna need them.
Also,
masterpiece.
isn't that like
Masterpiece.
amazing that this franchise, like, we have grown up with it, and when we were kids, our parents, well, I don't know how old you guys are, but our parents might have taken us to see the American Godzilla 2000, right? Or something like that, or they take us to go and see the movie. But now it's like so, it resonates so much, and it evolved so much that now we are taking our parents to see these movies, being like, hey, I think that's crazy. I think that's just like such a cool
switcheroo right there.
Yeah, the cultural exchange of like them doing it because they're like, this is a movie kids will like, but then us taking them and saying like, hey, this is actually something that's really worthwhile, that you will get something out of.
I had to spoil my mom that night. Large popcorn and a Coke slushie.
I've told this story so many times. My first Godzilla film was 1985. It was on my parents' old black and white TV. It came on one of the 4 stations that we could pick up that night, and sat down and watched it. And it was the best thing I've ever seen at 5 or 6 years old. And I too took both of my parents to see -1 and loved it. They thought it was
Yeah.
It is.
That is awesome.
But one thing United Kaiju podcast will do is glaze -1.
We will.
You're glazing up. You're just like, I fucking love this movie. Like,
please say
my
the line.
It's almost actually ridiculous because I mean we looking at our numbers, and the -1 episode is the highest listened episode. Yeah, and it's whenever we record, we always talk about -1. We could probably do it again for like another whole fucking hour.
Yeah, well, it's also really special as fans of something that has often been niche or seen as silly or like not interesting or kind of like disposable, like comic books, like a lot of B movies. It's really affirming when finally other people get it. You know, it's not why we do it, but when you see it winning an Oscar, when you see everyone on the internet's like talking about the director's little Godzilla shoes, you know, like that was like such. I would wear those shoes, by the way, but they're like $800. So I'm like, send us some Kaiju United shoe cast. We'll give us the free shoes. But like, I think that it means a lot. You know, it still blows my mind, and I know at the moment we're in kind of like a MCU fatigue, right? But like generally it just blows my mind. I never thought I would be able to like have a living just talking about stuff that I loved or writing about stuff that I loved, you know? So now I just feel blessed, and I feel like Godzilla is now coming up. Like the way that we are getting Godzilla stuff is equivalent to like that early like mid 2000s 2009 like Batman Dark Knight and Iron Man coming out in the same year, and this kind of more this bigger appetite for comic book movies, comic book storytelling. I feel like we're getting that now, but with Godzilla, with Kaiju, you know, Legendary getting the Pacific Rim license back and doing like a Kaiju comic, which is the art is by EJ Su, who's like a fantastic Godzilla cover artist. He does all the covers for the Godzilla trades that they do, the Rivals trades. He's got this incredible painted style. I'm a big fan. We did a signing with him at Universal Studios. Those signings are always amazing because you just get they got a comic book shop just like in the City Walk area, and you just get so many families who probably one of them has ever read a comic book, but they all know who Godzilla is. And when they find out you make the books, then they want to know. They're like, oh my God, like I didn't know that was a job you could have, you know, and we get to meet so many incredible kids that way. And I really do feel like it's like a golden age for Godzilla right now, for the fans, for the storytelling, for Godzilla himself. You know, we got more. They have like, I didn't get them out today because I got like my one vice is graphic tees. I just own like 100 graphic tees, but I have from the Godzilla shop that they started recently, the American Godzilla shop, Godzilla.com. They started making like all these crazy shirts. I've got like a 3 Moon Baby Godzilla shirt I was wearing yesterday. I've got like one that says Manila Son of Godzilla, like those old 80s t-shirts. Like
that's so
there's a lot
awesome,
of
man.
fun to be had, and the people working at that store to kind of make sure that there's cool. They did Godzilla Christmas sweaters this year, and it was baby Godzilla with the hat on, and I really wanted it, but I was like, I've got too much Godzilla merchandise.
There's no such thing.
No such thing as too much Godzilla.
No. If you see, this is why you can't. No, because if you would have told us that, it would have been like, you need to go buy it right now. You don't have it.
Yeah.
I'm like, maybe I'll go on Godzilla.com, see if they still have it. Maybe it's on sale.
I think you. We think you should.
I was really livid. Like, I'm looking right now at I got during Christmas, they had a sale at Middle of Beyond, which does these like incredible, they do like all kinds of stuff, but they do like silk jackets. That's like the number one thing they're known for. And I got a reversible Godzilla one, and it's got Mothra on the sleeves when it's embroidered, when it's pink.
I saw that.
Yeah, that, and it's got the Mothra twins on it. Like, that's crazy to me to be able to just buy something like that online, and I just love to rep like my fandoms and the things that I love and that matter to me. So it's a pretty great time to be able to do that right now with the fact that they finally realized people would buy Godzilla merch in America.
Right.
Toho came in clutch with it. They said they wanted to branch Godzilla out more and get it more accessible to us in the West. And I totally
they're doing
think that, yeah, 100%. But I do have a wee bit of beef with you, Rosie.
Oh, tell me.
I'm sorry that we have to spoil this episode. Since you said there was some inspiration of Godzilla's Revenge.
I know what you're gonna say.
So
really.
What the fuck? Why? Where?
Here we go.
Look, I'm gonna be honest with you, okay, guys, because I love you guys. You know what the truth is? It was like so
Good
much.
job, John.
It was like so much work to put the book together. Like so I pitched the book. I didn't hear that it was going to get greenlit till a year after that. Wow. And then I had to take it from like a page-long pitch to a script. And you know what? The time has gone past now. I don't think it's a problem to reveal this. But the first version of the script, as I was told, was that they wanted the kaijus to talk. Because they wanted them to talk to the kids.
They should have left it.
I know, and they wanted them to talk, and the idea was they thought that would be more accessible to kids. That was what I was told by my editor at the time. So I wrote a 100-page script, and it had them talking to the kaiju, and it had the kaiju talking, Manila especially. And the technique I used was basically like, if you go to Monster Island, you can understand the monsters. That's just the law,
wow.
right? So then the editorial changed, and then I got the feedback on the 100-page script. I did not get paid to rewrite because that's the nature of work for hire. And I did not put that in my contract. And so I had to rewrite the script with no talking. And that's how I came up with the talking stick, as we call it, or the scepter, this kind of idea that, because that was acceptable within like the kind of constraints of how Toho sees the kaiju. So you know what the real truth is? I literally was just working on this book. And then when Oliver started drawing the book, I was like, oh my God, Gabra's not in the fucking book. I was like, it was perfect. And I was like, it's been approved and I'm not going to do this. And I was just like, and that is, to be honest, it's, like when you're doing something and you're like so in it and you're just like, I'm just going to do this. I'm just going to finish. And then like, you print it off, you're writing, I don't know, something important, and you see it, and you've like gotten the most obvious name wrong. And you're like, oh my God, I can't believe I got this name wrong. Or like, how did that happen? And literally it is haunting me because like everyone talks about it. I love him. Obviously, that's like a character I've been raving about for so long. And every single person who loves these movies is like, so
where's he
what
at?
about
where is Gabra?
Where is he? And I'm like, you know what? I'm like, maybe the sequel is going to be like Gabra's Revenge because like I didn't put him in the book.
Ooh, there you go, John.
I mean,
there you go.
100%. I think that'd be so dope.
As you know, like you can see, like I knew it immediately what you were talking about. It was so funny. It was like I was like, I'm sure I got everything right that I would need in a Manila book. And then the pages came back, and I was like, oh my God. I was like, Oliver, they're gonna kill me. I was like, they're actually gonna kill me. I even had to but we did, the one thing I was glad that we did manage to get in that almost didn't get in just because of the nature was like, we did get in like one little bit of Manila doing the smoke rings. That was I wanted to make sure we got a little bit of his power. But yeah, believe me, John, it hangs over my head every day. I think about it. It's like,
I had to ask.
I still love the book so much, and I'm so proud of it, and I'm so happy, and everyone killed it. But yeah, believe me, as a writer, it's like in my heart, every time I look at it, I'm like, I know every true Manila fan reads this book and is like, what the fuck is Gabra? Like, what the fuck is wrong with you?
It doesn't ruin it with anime. It doesn't ruin it. Of course, it's like, oh man, like, yeah, it's a perfect setup, but it doesn't take anything away from it.
I appreciate that. But yeah, no, as soon as you said it, I was like, I know, man. I was like, believe me, I know.
I'm a big Gabra fan. I will vouch for him. I stand on that hill for him. So
he's a
I had to take
guy.
the opportunity to ask.
I appreciate you asking, so I could clear the air that I just forgot.
Heard it here first, folks. That's right.
On the United Kaiju podcast.
Can we take this a couple of steps further and just talk about, if you had the opportunity, how would you put Gabra in there?
Okay, so me and Oliver, we love hanging out and just like talking stories. Oliver did used to live in LA when we worked on Rivals, and a lot of Rivals was inspired by my growing up as a kid in like London and going to the seaside, kind of like these little seaside towns, but also inspired by where I live, which is really the most south point of LA, which is by the ports and is only really connected to LA by one road because they wanted the ports to be in LA. And so it was very much like inspired by being here together, and Oliver does parkour and he'd done parkour here, so it was very easy for us to do that. And then when I was working on this book, we were doing a lot of Zoom meetings and stuff. And then recently we were in Ohio, where Oliver is now living, a comic convention, and we spent all night just staying up, like making ideas for stories, like planning this comic that we have coming out that's like a licensed horror comic that's like a short story that'll be out in like fall. So I think like we have come up with like 50 different versions of sequels for this. Like one of them was going to be like, the next one was going to be called like Monster Island Cryptid Camp, and then we were going to spread it out from like, we were going to have like more monsters. And in that case, I mean, it's literally going to be like, when I put Gabra in a book, I'm going to basically have him like I'm going to have him be thinking like, oh, so where was my invite? You know, like, did you forget about me? Like, I was just chilling on Monster Island. It's gonna be the nod to it. But we had so many. One of the other funny ideas that I really like, there is no we haven't been asked to do a sequel. These are just fun ideas that we have. And in my dream, hopefully, once Oliver is even more established as like a Godzilla superstar, which I think he will be after this year, maybe we can return back to it. But one of the ideas we had was like Monster Island Winter Camp, where it gets turned into like a ski resort and you're dealing with all like snow kaiju, and it's kind of more like, do you guys remember this really bad movie called like, what is it called, like Ski School? They did an episode of It's Always Sunny that was like riffing on it, but it's basically like,
it's an 80s movie.
It's an 80s movie, and it's like you got like the local cool guys who love skating, and then you got like, the rich skiers who come in, and it's kind of that same, like, you always have to have the beef between the two groups. So we thought about doing like a winter themed version. I think one of the versions we really liked the idea of was like if we could do some kind of cosmic version where they're in space. So I think the summer camp setup and the way that we established the world means that it will not only be easy to introduce Gabra, but also to just like take it to all these different places. And we were lucky, like the book did come up on a couple of best of lists at the end of the year. And I'm hoping more than hope that we can get it nominated for some Eisner Awards this year that are kind of like the comic book Oscars, because I think Oliver should just be in those conversations. I think Nick did the colors so well. I think Jody smashed it with the lettering. Like, as a team, I just think the book is such a good example of like what you can do when you have cool editors. And like Toho legit is so chill. They never question Oliver. He had a different kind of art style than they'd had for a long time when we brought him on for Rivals. They were super excited for him. He didn't have a lot of sequentials, like he'd mostly done illustration, and they were just so supportive of him. And you know, now he's doing like covers for other Godzilla books. He did a cover for Ninja Turtles recently. Like, he's just so talented. And I think that even though, you know, we love to live in a world where we're like, awards don't matter, I think that for artists they do matter, because like you want people to recognize, well, Oliver's really great, like let's get him on a, you know, X-Men book, or let's get him on whatever kind of book. But at the moment he's smashing it. We do also have, how do you guys feel about the legendary stuff? Like, is that something you delve into, or are you more classic Godzilla guys?
I feel like we're kind of both. I mean, we've accepted the fact that, and we try to promote it too, that, you know, Legendary is gonna do those the pay-per-view Monster Ball show type of thing, and Toho is gonna most likely stick to that serious tone mixed in with the fantasy. So we have both We have a balance.
I will say I do think something I was really proud of in the fandom was to see that after -1 came out and had such a huge impact on everyone, when Godzilla X Kong came out and it was obviously much sillier, you know, you had the Dan Stevens as like a kaiju vet, which I loved that character. I thought that was so cool. But I was really happy because I saw the fandom basically being like, hey guys, we get both. Like, this is the good thing. Like, you don't.
But it wasn't that quick. It wasn't that quick.
It was people had to go through the experience and kind of realize that in the history of Godzilla, there's always been both. The silly, the serious. And I think that eventually they came to this idea of like, well, aren't we lucky that both of these exist? So that's kind of like, I try and live in that space too. But me and Oliver do have a comic that's coming out that is a legendary Godzilla comic that was from a Kickstarter from, I think, a couple of years ago now. And I think people just started getting theirs. But it was really funny because we didn't know what monster we were going to draw. We didn't know like what the story was until quite far into the project. And they said to us, like, guys, you know, and me and Oliver were like, maybe we're going to do Godzilla. Like, they seem to be being real, like, you know, secretive, like making sure that they're keeping it tight till they need us to write it. And then they were like, you are going to write. And I was like, oh my God, if you guys don't know if you guys don't know who Doug is, he is like a legendary cameo character in the legendary verse because he's really dwarfy looking and he only is ever in the movie for like 5 minutes, right?
Yeah. He should have been part of the fight at the end with Zuko.
They should have brought him back, right? Like, and everybody loves Doug. Doug was actually a name that was given to him by the fandom. It was not an official thing. And now he is known as Titanus Doug. And, you know, that's another case of the fandom really shaping the character. But that comic is actually really, really cool because they were like, what if you did like a silent comic, kind of like it's the opening of WALL-E? Like, what if you don't have to worry about human characters? You don't even have to worry about like, just like, what is Doug's day like? Like, what does he do? Like, what's a slice of life Doug comic? So,
oh my God.
Dude, and it's actually like so funny because also the idea was like, Doug can never like purposefully defeat someone because he's like dumb, right? He's like a himbo. So what we got to do in that comic is like we got to kind of showcase like all the ways that when he's just trying to like run away or like chase a butterfly, he's like accidentally like Rube Goldberging the other creatures.
Wait, you know, it's the old cartoon where someone has to babysit this baby. And the baby will just walk and get into all types of trouble, and the babysitter is trying to catch the baby. And I mean, everything is working out for the baby. Like it could be about to walk off or something.
Yeah. It's gonna like baby's great day out. I remember that when I was a kid.
Fucking movie. I'm trying to think of it.
And it's like the baby's like walking on the scaffolding. Doug is definitely that baby. Like he is our baby like that. So... He's always doing But the funniest thing about it, right? So how I envisioned it, and like I think the original concept they had was it was like very comedic, obviously. But the thing is, and this is, I think, I love this. I think about Oliver saying this all the time. He's sending me the pages, and I was like, oh my God, these are like so good. Like, these are incredible. Like, you're really going in. And he was like, yeah, I want everyone to read this comic and be like, he didn't have to go this hard on a Doug comic. So the comic actually came out like looking like super badass, and Doug looks like really cool. So I'm interested to see, like, I think the people who kickstarted it, it was part of a Kickstarter for like a prequel to Godzilla X Kong. And then they made a second book called Monsterverse Declassified that has information about the character, the monsters, and then, you know, comics about them. And we did our Doug one. Hilariously, the Doug information is all redacted. So it's not declassified for Doug. Like, you ain't learning nothing or like top secret. So that's been really mystery, yo. Dude, that's been funny because like other Godzilla fandom sites have been asking me, and they're like, you know, did you choose to redact all the information? And I'm like, you know, Doug, he's like an enigma. He's like an enigmatic guy, you know. So that was very fun, and it was nice to get to work on Oliver with something in that space. And I should have like a different kind of legendary book, but in the same space that I can announce later this year. So I'm stoked for that. Also, did you guys watch the Monarch show on Apple?
Yes.
Yeah, because I thought that was like a really, really fantastic show. Like for me,
I think the behind the scenes is really nice. You know? It got a lot of shit for no reason, only because everyone wants it.
It's tough as well
because
also it's tough because it's a TV show, so you don't have like a blockbuster budget. It's legendary, so people expect those pay-per-view style brawls, but you're doing more of a prestige style where at the end you only get like 10 minutes of a monster or 5 minutes of a monster.
Yeah,
but character-wise, I love the characters.
You have to world build in these things, and as a creator, you can see that and understand that, because it's an opportunity to give you more of what's going on in the world and smaller bite size. You're not sitting there for 2 hours. You're getting an hour or so, and it's spread out. So they're able to flesh out the story. They don't have to do it as quickly. So the fans have to understand that across all fandoms, that when
it's a different kind of storytelling.
To the TV show, right? You're not going to get complete monster mayhem all the time, so we have to have these little pockets of moments where there's explaining and all that stuff going on.
Something I always say to people, whether it's in my work or on a podcast or just people I meet who don't like something, I'm always like, guess what, guys? You don't have to watch it. And then you can just have the version you like. Like if you just like the big monster battles, you don't have to watch this. But I loved it because I love like a pocket size kind of bottle episode almost, which is what obviously with Manila and Monster Island Summer Camp, that in my head that is still existing in like a main Godzilla canon. It's just like if you lived in a world where kaiju are, it's not always going to be people smashing down every city. Like there's going to be these little things happening. And something that immediately hooked me with Monarch was I loved the way it was like, what is it like if you just live in Japan and Godzilla is there? Like what does it look like after that? What does it look like in San Francisco? Like if you're not somebody who's actively fighting against this, like the panic attacks, the drills, the Godzilla drills. I just thought all that stuff was so cool. And I'm really stoked it's getting a second season. And I'm excited because I think when I was doing the first Legendary comic, I was interested to see it. I was watching Monarch at the same time. So I was kind of like, ooh, could I bring in some of these creatures? Like they introduced some really cool new stuff, but it was a bit too early. But hopefully the next project that I work on is going to be more aligned with the whole Legendary universe, including the Monarch stuff. So I think that should be really fun.
And that's an excellent point that you brought up with Monarch, because it's like, how would North Carolina handle a kaiju attack? How would Texas handle a kaiju attack? How would New Jersey handle a kaiju attack?
And what's it like if
come out with shotguns and be like, you wouldn't take my gun, bitch?
Godzilla's like, doesn't care. He's like, you can't, like, he's like, no, I don't, he doesn't have any. Yeah, I mean, okay, so sorry, I'm not trying to now my podcast hosting is coming out, but I do.
Go for it.
I'm interested in you guys.
The name under Rosie, whoever's not watching this on YouTube, is just a little host guy. So she's taking over. So here we go.
It's my setup from this is what my Riverside is for when I record.
I love it.
I love it.
No, what I was going to ask is like, there's something I find interesting is like these different iterations of Godzilla over the years. So like I like a Godzilla who almost has like, it's not a moral compass, but there's definitely some kind of intuition there, right? Like this is the Godzilla who can be heroic, even though they're never truly just a hero because they're always destroying stuff. But generally they want to protect that. Something that I've seen in both the writing license comics and in the fandom and in the movies and stuff, there's definitely a movement nowadays, and this is part of -1 as well, towards Godzilla is more of like a force of nature. Like Godzilla is like, you can't even comprehend what Godzilla thinks because Godzilla is just a walking natural disaster. Godzilla is just this force. What are you guys like? Like, are you guys more into that iteration of Godzilla, or do you like the one where he has kind of more of a little bit of like a character or a personality? Like what hits hardest for you guys when it comes to Godzilla like that?
I'll go ahead and answer first.
Yeah, go ahead.
Everyone knows that I am the natural tornado, hurricane.
Mm-hmm.
When mankind falls into conflict with nature, monsters are born. I am that. So 54, 84, 85, Shin -1. That Godzilla. That's a force of nature that is here to be understood, not to be stopped, not to be destroyed, but to be understood and That's my favorite Godzilla.
Ramon, what you got, brother?
No, as much as I enjoy the silly goofiness of Godzilla from time to time, like 62 for me is what won my heart and made me the Godzilla fan that I am today. It has some serious moments, and when it throws down, it's not afraid to fight, but it does have some silly moments throughout the film. Just like Tony said, I love my Godzilla to be a destructive force of nature that cannot be stopped, that cannot be reasoned with, cannot be something that we can deteriorate, or something that we cannot, no matter what we do, no matter how much we plan ahead, Godzilla is something that we cannot control. So for my pick, I would say Godzilla is something, for me, is something I want him to be like a destructive force of nature. And that's just the Godzilla that I always want to roll with. But John, how about you, buddy?
I go with the and I guess this has been my perspective on Godzilla, the anti-hero. It's like he hates humanity. Let's be real. Like
he's sick of us. He's absolutely sick of us.
He hates our guts, but at the same time, he defends us. And I think it's I'm sure at all of us at one point have felt like we have been loved and hated and hated and loved, and it's really relatable. But like, take Godzilla versus Destroyer. Yeah, his body is just absolutely like wrecking him, and I feel that we can all relate this to situations to that. And the anti-hero is just like, listen, I'm gonna protect y'all, but I'm also gonna kill you at the same time. So it's like, pick and choose your battles. You want to fuck with me? You're gonna fuck with that 3-headed danger noodle that wants to really kill you. I don't, but I'm gonna do it because you're in my fucking way.
Yeah,
that's what I love, and I think, and honestly, like, I think every Godzilla movie is the anti-hero.
Yeah,
even from Toho to Legendary, like
basically
even
everything post 1954. Because the first movie is like, he is the horror. But then again, I would say -1 returns more to that. Same with Shin Godzilla. Yeah.
And I mean, even with GXK, like, yeah, you got Godzilla sleeping in the Coliseum. It's adorable. But when he comes out and he's fucking up somebody, he's wrecking the fucking city.
Oh, yeah. He doesn't care. He's just taking a nap.
Yeah, he's just chilling, and then when someone gets in his way, it's all right. Let's go. Like, you fucking with my people now. We're gonna fight. Fuck you. So anti-hero, all the way through.
Yeah.
That's why. And I think it's one of those. And I don't know. Did you watch the Toho video of like what Godzilla means to me?
Yeah.
I think that was really important for Toho to put out, because it showed that. And of course, there's always discourse in a fan base, and it happens. And it's very sweet, because we talk shit about the community because we're
more too involved.
We are, and we see a lot of the ugly, but we see a lot of the good at the same time. And I think that video kind of shared the experience that everyone is literally the same. It all has this deeper, positive meaning to us, and I really hope it kind of shaped a lot of some of these ugly fuckers that are just, coming in the community and just shit on everything. Like, Godzilla's dorsals are pink now. What is he? A girl? Like, shut the fuck up, dude. Like,
it's just a cool character design, bro. Yeah, like, you had to just mix it up a bit.
Leave it fucking be. It doesn't matter. It makes sense
as Neon. Like, it's also as well. Godzilla, Kong Skull Island, like the Legendary movie, that is like a very famous kind of example of early bisexual lighting that became like a huge deal with the blue and the pink and everything. Obviously, we had like The Thing, the John Carpenter movie has it, but that was like we used to do, when I worked at Nerdist, we used to do basically like watch-alongs for the Legendary, because Nerdist is owned by Legendary, and we would do them like with the directors sometimes. And I remember with Skull Island, it was really funny because the director did not know what bisexual lighting was, and everyone in the Twitter thread was like, "Oh my god, man, like bisexual lighting," and then they had to explain it to them. It was very cute. He was very open to it, and it's like you said, like obviously every fandom has discourse and conversations and disagreements. But I will say, just on like a day-to-day basis, like it's changed definitely. And I don't have Twitter anymore or anything. I deleted it like a few years ago. And
good on you.
So yeah, it was great for me, because being like a woman who writes about like geek stuff
you get ripped to shreds.
rough on Twitter.
That, man. Jesus.
Yeah, it used to be like, if you wrote something positive about Star Wars, you're a shill who's being paid by Disney. If you write something negative about Star Wars, you've never watched a Star Wars movie in your life. You don't know what's going on. You know, it was very binary. And I will say, just on like when the official Toho account, which was like, truly, I was so stoked because this hadn't been happening with a lot of the comics, but they announced Monster Island Summer Camp. And they put it on the website and they put it on their Instagram page. And the Instagram page has so many comments, and no joke, there was maybe 2 that were like, oh, who cares about Manila? Every single other comment was like, yeah, I'm so excited. Like, this is so weird. Like, Toho should be doing this. And I would just say that's why, to me, like, on that first interaction basis, it is definitely feels like a more welcoming space. And also, they're so stoked for, like, just having more Godzilla content. Like this year, IDW is going to be like a crazy Godzilla year.
They are busting out stuff.
They have got a lot of comics coming out. The Godzilla versus America stuff. They have obviously the new heroes that they're kind of teasing on Free Comic Book Day, which Oliver did a cover for the Free Comic Book Day issue. That's super cool. I believe it's out now because it's been solicited. And they have like a ton more things coming, and Legendary has more Godzilla things. And I think ultimately, as much as the fandom might like to like complain, it's clear that people are really stoked that there's like so much Godzilla. And I think really that's like the best feeling.
Again, the deep dive. I see you may kind of dabble in gaming a little bit.
Oh yeah, I do love to play video games. I'm a video game lover. I not particularly good at any one, but I play a lot of them.
So have you checked out any of the Godzilla event with Fortnite?
Yes, I have. So my nephew is he's 11, and he's my little like he's my tastemaker. Like he lets me know, like he sent me a voice note the other day, and it was just like on my WhatsApp, because he's in England, and he was like, Hatsune Miiko's on Fortnite. So believe he told me when Godzilla joined Fortnite, and we were at his house watching Godzilla Fortnite play, and Godzilla wearing like Jordans, which I was loving.
That's crazy.
I will say that's another crazy thing that I think a lot of people like our age don't necessarily understand about the way Godzilla has become so popular. Is like, my nephew loves Godzilla, and he can test me nowadays on most Godzilla kind of trivia or facts. He loves to know a fact. And it's because he watches these YouTube videos where it will be like, it's like Godzilla evolutions, every single Godzilla, and then it will be like Godzilla heat ray evolutions, and it will show you every single one, and it tells you the names. And it's very interesting to me that there's a whole group of kids who know all this stuff about Godzilla, who love Godzilla, but haven't necessarily watched all the movies like we did. It's not the same kind of, it's not like we watched every movie to find out those facts. Like somebody else distilled it down, and now these kids can go in and make a considered choice of what they want to watch. And I'll tell you the weirdest thing that nobody ever believes me, but it's true. You know what movie 11-year-olds want to watch? Shin Godzilla. They fucking love they fucking love Shin Godzilla. They love that gross baby evolution of Shin Godzilla. They love the fact that there was a different version of the ending where Shin Godzilla was going to puke blood all over the city. And like Shin Godzilla is such a deeply bureaucratic, slow-moving movie, but for some reason that design, the horror of it all. I meet so many kids. Who's your favorite Godzilla? Shin Godzilla. And my nephew owns Shin Godzilla on Blu-ray. I bought it for him, and he watches it. So like that internet aspect definitely draws them in, and stuff like having him on Fortnite like spreads the news. But I also, one of the things I was trying to comprehend, because we were doing a lot of Fortnite Godzilla and Marvel Rivals, because it just came out when I was there in December.
Rivals is dope.
It's crazy. Jason, my co-host, he is like platinum level at the moment, competitive, and he is just like, he's decimating everyone with Mantis like that. I think he's moved on now maybe to Sue Storm, but
I just started. So
I actually don't currently have a console I can play it on, because I was using Jason's PS5, but I give it back to him. I have a Switch. That's where I play most of my games. Nice. But something that was cracking me up about Godzilla and Fortnite is I was like, how big is he? Because he's not very big, right? Like compared to how big. And then my nephew showed me a video of like the 10 biggest characters in Fortnite, and Godzilla was like 4th on the list because I guess there's a guy who's like fully like a representation of the universe, almost kind of like Galactus. So he's like Cosmos or whatever, and he's like so tall. And so Godzilla's only like middling tall, but I do think it's funny that you can have like Godzilla with a gun, like shooting people.
Yeah.
Like that's funny to me.
So one thing about this whole thing, Godzilla is becoming more popularized.
Mm-hmm.
My first reaction to Godzilla in Fortnite as a playable skin was, please do not do this.
Right? I understand. Because I feel like if they put him in Fortnite, right, I would want to play as like he is big as a real Godzilla and is just stamping on everyone. But obviously it's a playable skin, so that's not the case,
However, Fortnite has been able to do this. They had Optimus Prime. Somewhere in the story, they were able to shrink Prime down into a playable character size. But however, so you've seen that once you go through the Hollow Earth portal, you can become Godzilla, and he's huge and all that stuff. One thing that I love about how they did this is, number one, he doesn't die when when all his health goes away. He just kind of
Godzilla can never die, okay?
Can never die.
Kaiju can never die. In those comics, you better not kill a kaiju. Toho will come for you. No one can die. No death.
That's the rule. That's Toho's major rule.
Just rebirth. You can be rebirthed. Right. You can slow down. I never got that note because I'm never trying to kill a monster because I'm always on the monster side. But I do know people who got that note. But my favorite note that Toho ever gave me, which I guess shows that they are more on you guys' side of this, like the force of nature kind of vibe. I did get one of the notes that I got out of the 3 notes I got from Toho was that Godzilla couldn't do a thumbs up. And I was like really upset. I was like, no, I've seen him do a thumbs up. And they were like, it's too humanoid. It's too, it's too kind of silly. I was like, I've seen him do it. Like, I know, guys. But obviously, Aaron's so chill. But then yeah, that was me. That was how I envisioned him being like, good job, kids. With like all the sparkles. But I was kind of thinking more of that like Showa era, but I was very honored because at the end of the script, Manila waves goodbye to his friends, and Toho was like, "You can keep that because it's an emotional moment."
I would be.
I was like, yes.
I gotta know something after Tony. I gotta know something.
I would be very interested to know when Toho decided to do this because Godzilla versus Gigan, they are freaking talking to each other.
I know.
I would like to know when these.
I think
it's at the Final Wars. I would say it's probably at the Final Wars because, even you look at that type of interaction with Minya and Godzilla at the end, and it's goofy. It's goofy as all hell. And it's not something that we've really seen, even with Son of Godzilla. Son of Godzilla was such a different tone. It was Godzilla was, the adopted parent for Minya.
Of an egg,
right. And he didn't want to deal with Minya to begin with. He was all like, fuck this thing, I don't like you, you're like, ugly, go away. But then of course at the time, he kind of softens up, and then we get that beautiful ending, which I was gonna say, if you're gonna do a snow thing, Rosie, I really hope you put that ending from Son of Godzilla
that, come on, it's so good. Like, that would be idyllic.
I totally love it.
I can see that done in Oliver's style too.
Yeah,
right.
I can visualize it.
Great.
I do need to know, Rosie, because I asked people this to ever get a letter from Toho. Have you framed it?
You know what? I never got like a letter from Toho because everything was just. It was, it was more like you do the script. It's like a PDF, and then they put comments on it. But I have been very tempted to put I tell the no thumbs up story so much because I just think it's a really great example of what is important to Toho, and what they care about is like great storytelling and whether or not these characters are believable within their world. And other than that, they are going to let you tell the craziest, most beautiful, gorgeous story, whether you're James Stokoe doing something incredible, as he often does. Andrew McLean recently did his Godzilla book, which was really, really cool. And they're just so different. And I like the thumbs up because I think it's a great note, because it's like, whatever else you're doing, like, ruin your suspension of disbelief by doing this thing that for some readers is going to just totally turn them off. There wasn't necessarily that level of, it was just like, Godzilla can't do a thumbs up. But in my mind, I was like, yeah, I get it. And also, if you haven't read this book, which obviously you guys have, and I really appreciate it, but like, if you haven't, like, Oliver's Godzilla in this book is like so fantastic. Like, Oliver's Godzilla in this book is so fucking cool that I was literally like, maybe I got to go back, and I was cutting down as much dialogue as I could so you could just see his Godzilla, because I think that in that moment the book really changes and turns more into that classic Godzilla story where like he is, and yeah, it is more in that mind of Godzilla as at least a little bit of protector of the earth, but he still blows shit up, you know. He's doing eco-terrorism with these children, like, which I think is what Godzilla does best. And yeah, and like I have considered that. Now the truth is, like, I do freak out. Like, I got to go to the interview the guy who was at the time running Toho, like years ago before I'd even done these books, for Nerdist, to kind of talk about the anniversary of Godzilla and stuff. So I do get really excited like that. And yeah, if I ever got like, you know, a letter from Toho, I would be like so honored. I mean, I've never seen them, but we are lucky because Oliver, I thought it's really important to have like a Japanese American artist on the book, because they hadn't really done that with Godzilla. And so Oliver's art is incredibly popular with Toho proper, and they actually did a Japanese translation of our Bactra story and round one. And so I'm hoping, and I've never seen it, but Oliver did get some copies, and I'm hoping that this gets a similar reception. And then, like, my dream is, I really want, like, me and Oliver to be able to go to Japan one day and, like, be at Toho and do a signing and stuff like that. So I definitely think Oliver is on that route, because he's just such a brilliant artist, and he's really made, like, both of us have ended up unintentionally becoming, like, the Godzilla guys. But he is gonna keep doing that with the work he's doing this year at IDW.
Did he reference 85 for the design?
So the design was actually a very long process, because they did want, you know, there was this understanding that Manila needed to be a little bit cuter, you know, so he was definitely looking at 85. He was looking throughout history in general. And the only real note that we got, and this is another great note from Toho, and I love this kind of stuff, because this is the grittiness that matters to them, like the granular nature. They wanted Manila to have, I believe, 4 toes instead of 3 toes. And I think he originally drew him with 3 toes, and then it had to be 4 toes. And that's the kind of stuff, like, when we did our Rivals book, there was a lot of conversation about the color of Godzilla. Like, he's got to be the color of kind of a ripe avocado, like the outside. He's like this purplish, like leathery, you know. With Manila, we had a lot more freedom. They were very open to Oliver's ideas. And I will say, some people online, and I understand this, and I was in the DMs with some of them, because some of them were like accounts I follow and stuff. They were like, don't cutify Manila, like, let him be ugly. And while I do appreciate that as someone who has an ugly Manila tattoo, and I love my ugly son, you know, when you're making a book for kids, you want it to be something that they want to hang out with, someone that they want to spend time with.
It has to be attractive to them.
Exactly. And so we definitely, obviously, heavily inspired by Studio Ghibli. Like, the cover was definitely very, like, Totoro inspired, you know. So it was fun to kind of come through it. But yeah, we actually included in the back, which was one of the best things about making this book and making books for younger readers, is that you can kind of put this like educational content in the books that you wouldn't necessarily always get to put in. So in the paperback version, you have the sketches of Manila, like different versions that Oliver tried out. We also have the biographies that I wrote of the different cartoonists who each of the kids were named after. And in the hardcover version, I was really stoked we managed to get that in, because like those cartoonists and Weezy, who's a writer, they really like shaped me as like a comic book fan, a comic book reader, like. And then in the hardcover version, that is the IDW exclusive version, I did an interview with Oliver, which was really cool, that got published in there. And then also I had some kind of more intricate, like, how does it go from a comic book script to a page, which is like, you do sketch, I write the script, me and Oliver are very collaborative on it, and then he does layouts, like sketchy sketches, and then they get approved or changed, but they got approved. and then you start penciling, and then you start inking, and then Oliver was originally going to color the book as well, but the deadline, the kind of time they wanted it to come out, and by the time that we'd got all the approvals, it was kind of hard. So we brought in Nick, and he did essentially, like, we call it color assists, because it wasn't just flats, but it wasn't full colors, and then Oliver would come in at the end. And then we really lucked out with Jodie, because she just did a test page for the book, and I believe it was the test page where Aurora and Rumiko are like saying Godzilla, but Jodie did it in the logo from the cover, like Superman.
Yeah.
Right.
And as soon as she did that, we were like, oh, this is the right person. Like, she gets it. She understands like what is exciting about comic books, and what style, and her lettering is just so fantastic. Yeah. That page, I was like, that's like my dream, when you're a kid and you read it and they're like, we gotta call Superman, and they put the Superman logo, and you're like, whoa, like, yeah, man. And to me, Godzilla is definitely, I liked having kids who weren't scared of monsters in the book as well. I thought we live in an era where people love monsters, kids love scary stuff, kids love Five Nights at Freddy's, kids love weird, like, backrooms, YouTube horror, like, kids have seen The Walking Dead. So I thought it was really fun to do a version where it was like, oh, kids who love monsters. Like, and one girl on Goodreads, there was a girl who gave us such a lovely review, and it was like a 4-star review. And she was like, the only reason I didn't give it a 5 stars is because, like, I think they would probably have been a bit scared. She's like, they would have been a bit scared at like the beginning. And I was like, you know what? That's absolutely true. Like, I was just going for like silly kid time, like kind of like when they see E.T. and they don't immediately kill him with hammers, like in the movie. It's like, you need that suspension of disbelief where any sensible person probably would not have been chilling with Manila. But in the case of the story, you need that suspension of disbelief and that magical connection to like make you want to keep reading.
I mean, I thought the introduction was, like it's a jump scare a little bit, but then like after he reaches for the girl through the waterfall, you come to this gorgeous image.
Exactly. That was one of the first pages that Oliver drew, and the colors were just so unexpected, the kind of palettes that Nick picked. So it was really nice to be able to get to envision like our own version of Monster Island too, which was really cool.
As a fan of the original Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle live action movie.
I love those movies.
The disguise that Manila did,
dude, in the
was
script,
a lot like
in the script,
trench coat and hat.
I literally linked it. I literally linked that image of Raph because that, for some reason, ever since I was a kid, I just thought that was like the best thing ever. Was like when you had a character. One, I'm a Raphael lover. I actually have a T-shirt, and on the front is just a picture of him with that disguise on, and on the back it says like a little too Raph or something on the back.
And
but
then
like
the cartoon, all 4 of them were in disguise.
Exactly.
In the city.
So that was a big deal for me, and I originally had told Oliver to do the hat, like the fedora hat, but he went for more like, I liked that he melded it where it was like it was the classic trench coat disguise that you see in RoboCop when he's trying to hide. You see it in Ninja Turtles. You see the Thing from that one. He's always
those shades,
the Thing.
those shades.
But then but what I loved about it was Oliver then comboed it with kind of like the thing that we all joke about as comic book fans, which is in any MCU movie, if an Avenger is trying not to be recognized, they just put on like a baseball cap and glasses.
Yeah,
but it's obviously Captain America.
Superman is the biggest freaking. So you telling me if I do this, you don't know it's me anymore?
Who's this guy?
Come on.
Oh my god. Oh no, I've taken off my glasses. Like, who am I?
Where did Rosie go?
Where did Jody go? Oh,
exactly.
There you go.
I'm back. I came back. But like that was, I'm glad that you caught that, because and literally in the script,
I love that.
I wrote like a whole little paragraph, like, he's wearing the disguise. This is what it looks like. And that was one of the first scenes that I really envisioned. And also the page where Manila is looking at himself in the mirror and he thinks he looks cute and he's got like the little stars in his eyes. That was one of the earliest pages where I was like, I've got to find a way to get him into like a funny camper outfit. You know, so that was definitely where I was coming from. I love that. I just think it's one of the funniest genre tropes. Like, it doesn't matter whether you're a cop who's been turned into a robot or a mutated turtle. Like, for some reason, the only disguise you can think of is like a tank is like a trench coat and a fedora. It's so
Yep.
good.
It just works perfectly.
It works perfectly every time.
Yeah.
And kind of going back to something you said earlier, like about fans talking. I do you plan to ever go to G Fest?
Oh, I would love to go to G Fest. It's like definitely one of the biggest things on my list. We were really lucky last year that we were invited to the Music Box Theater in Chicago. And obviously because of G Fest, Chicago has like a crazy Godzilla community. So they do a week-long festival there where they show tons of Godzilla movies. I believe they might even show all of them, all Toho. They do a 24-hour marathon on the first night, and then they show a bunch of different stuff. And we were there as vendors. The book had not come out yet, but we had these free giveaway zines. And most of the time, if you do a signing, you're there for like 2 hours, right? But we got there at 11 in the morning, and we were there till 1 in the morning. And it was so cool. And we met a lot of like Safubi vendors, and we met a lot of kids who
my family actually was there, and I think that night what was the name? Otaku America was there.
Yeah.
Yep. Yeah, it was funny because I know those dudes, and my family FaceTime me, and I was talking to him when it was great.
Yeah, I actually got a tattoo there. They had I got this tattoo. You could get a tattoo in the cinema, and I just put it was like $100, and I put my name down for it. And yeah, it was such an incredible space. Like, I really want to go back and do that fest again. But I would love to do G Fest. There was a guy from G Fan there who did a really cool write up. Nick, when he did his story, which was Biolante v Destroyer in the second round of Rivals, where they were doing non-Godzilla fights. You could pick any other monster apart from Godzilla. He got interviewed in G-Fan. That was super cool. Like, I love that there's still like a real magazine, like a fanzine. And and G-Fest, I would love to go. So hopefully, fingers crossed, it can happen. Because the truth is, we're still like, I'm still doing signings for this book, even though it came out in August. Like, people, it feels like it will be perennial. So even if we don't get to do a sequel, I'm hoping there's always going to be some little Godzilla stuff, whether on this side or the legendary side, that can mean that can become a reality. Because I would be on it. It's the biggest thing you can do as a Godzilla fan.
Right. I mean, talk like Ramon. I've been going for a while now, but Ramon had his first time there. And you want to talk about like kids talking about it, and it's really, I always like to promote the younger generation, all the ones that are going to carry this torch. So we need them to be doing this. And I know Ramon will agree with me. When you say they can talk.
Oh, baby.
No. It's not they can talk. They can have fucking essays about it.
Oh, yeah.
And you better be fucking prepared to stand there and listen, because there ain't no way. You gotta be like, I'm sorry, I have to go to the bathroom real quick.
No, my nephew calls me and he goes to me. This is what he usually says. He says, do you want to play Roblox? And I'm like, probably not. But I do play Roblox with him a lot on there. We play a lot of Godzilla games. But then he says, okay, well, did you know? And that's when I know.
Game over. Game over, man.
And I've learned so much about, and I'm the auntie who will always listen to it, because when I was a kid, I was like that about comic books and films, and pretty much every adult was just like, please shut the fuck up. Like, just, you are like boring me. So with him, I'm always like, tell me, man. I'm like, tell me every Ben 10 character, or tell me like this new thing that you learned about, like, when they made this and Mothra was in it or something. I'm like, I want to hear it. So yeah, that is another thing that happened at the Music Box Godzilla Fest, was there were just so many kids there with their parents, and they would come up to us and they'd be telling us our favorite stories. We made friends with a super talented young guy who was maybe like 11 or 12. He was making Godzilla like stop motion films on YouTube with his action figures. His mom actually, oh my god, let me get it. His mom 3D printed me a little manila and like bought it.
Let's see this. Come on, you gotta get it.
I gotta get it. It's so cool. It's so cool.
I love it. She's good.
Yeah.
We gotta bring Oliver on.
We gotta get Oliver.
You
think my head is gonna blow up?
I'm sure he would love. He's literally just like in his house.
Both of you guys.
That would be amazing.
That'd be awesome.
Please.
He is like, he loves to do. We've done interviews on X-Ray Vision together and stuff. So he's always down, and he can jump on Zoom. But yeah, look. So the second day she came back, and she'd like 3D printed this little guy for me, and I couldn't believe it. And he's so cute, and like
That's fun.
That's like my most. I have a lot of like Manillas, and I think I've got about like 30 or 40.
You have to find
now.
her.
Not Manillas, or just like Godzilla figures in general.
I was gonna say,
no.
40
I got like
40 Manila. That's impressive.
I got like 5 Manillas, maybe.
I don't think
but
hate that
this
many.
is
Jesus.
this is probably my most precious one. Yeah,
That's dope.
They started making more of them ever since they made. There was a really popular Manila figure that came out, I think in the mid 2000s, and that had been very collectible in the scene, and it had a real resurgence recently. I think I got mine for like $50 at a convention, but now they're like $180.
Yeah.
And so after that, I think they realized. So Super 7 did a Manila recently. They've done Manila blind boxes. Yeah, they did stuff like that.
I have Godzilla's Chillin', but it was the Godzilla's Revenge thing. And
I like the little chibi.
I think he looks great. I even have the Son of Godzilla, the Godzilla design, and it comes with 2 minions, and one is he's grown up, and the other one is that ugly baby form that doesn't want to fucking stand for the life of it. So he's face down on my shelf. He's just on the floor.
I know we had one of the coolest Godzilla collectibles that I got recently is we made friends with a guy who's really great called Jason. And he's a Godzilla, like an influencer, like a Godzilla influencer and a toy influencer. And he came to one of our signings at TFAR in Universal City Walk. And we became friends. And then like when we did the book launch for Monster Island Summer Camp, which we did at Secret Headquarters in LA, which is this incredible independent comic shop, he came dressed as Godzilla. He has like a blow up Godzilla suit, and he came and people took photos with him. That's and he made a video, and it was really great. And when we were at Comic-Con, I was doing a signing, but he had started working for the first time doing some content with Super 7. And the one, I never really buy anything at Comic-Con that's like a exclusive, because I don't want to queue up. English people love to queue up. American people love to queue up. I don't like to stand in a line. So I'm just going to get my weird like back issue comics or whatever. But he got me for San Diego Comic-Con. Super 7 did a special edition, and it's like Godzilla shaking hands with Jet Jaguar. And it's like in a little box, and it's like a rainbow box. It's so cool. And he managed to nab me one while he was at the
that's cool.
The thing. So that's definitely probably like a lot of my figures otherwise are just like weird ones I bought from conventions, and some of them are Japanese.
John, please show her your Hedorah.
Oh yeah, Actually, do you have like a crazy Hedorah Safubi?
Well, actually, John, before you go, where's your Manila shirt at, dude?
Don't worry, I also have many Manila shirts I didn't wear.
I got the figure just for her, so we're golden. Hold on a second.
Yeah, when we bring Oliver back, we'll all wear themed T-shirts. I mean, you are, Bramon, you're wearing a themed T-shirt. You're wearing your own.
I wanted to represent the podcast.
You're like, I gotta represent the pod.
I gotta represent my show proudly.
All right.
Even though
before I show you this, I have to ask if you've ever seen the concept art of Hedorah.
Yes, I have seen the concept art of Hedorah.
Okay. So then you'll know.
And he's such a little guy. His little face. Oh, I just love a weird little guy, man. I
they were selling this at G-Fest.
So cool.
I was just looking at it like a week before the fest, and I was like, it was such a weird design, and I'm kind of now into like getting the weird figures.
Yeah.
Like
I think that the Safubi market is like so interesting
because it's blowing up, and I love
it when he bought it.
It's like so like bootleg. Like so many of them are just bootlegs, and that's such a powerful part of the market. Is we were there at the Music Box Festival. Like Katie, my friend who invited me, who's the programmer, Katie Rife, she's a fantastic film critic, just generally wonderful person, and she bought. They had a little Hedorah there, but it was like the colors were like the lesbian flag colors, and everyone was like, "Oh my god, it's lesbian Hedorah! Like this is incredible!" Because they just have so many different crazy colors. But the one I saw that I almost bought, that I should have bought, honestly, it was just so cool. I never seen it before. It was maybe probably I don't know, almost a foot tall, probably like 10 inches, and it was two Safubi figures, but they were the Mothra twins. Like in the clothes, and it would look, they were obviously vintage, and they just looked so cool. But they were like, I was like $160 for 2, and I was like, I'm here doing business. Like I have to be. I didn't buy any Godzilla. That's not true. I think I always buy myself a Godzilla figure every time I'm like doing a Godzilla event, or if there's a big, like when I finished Monster Island Summer Camp, that's when I bought the expensive Manila for the first time. And what did I get from there? Yeah, I know. I know the prices. Oh, you know what? I think I don't remember what I got, but I did also recently get a Batra for Rivals, because they hadn't had a nice Batra for a long time, but they just did a really good.
Nice.
Just a normal Batra. But yeah, no, the Sofubi market, we actually have a shop here in LA. I
don't want to hear about your shops. You guys have fucking everything, and I hate it. I got nothing here. I have nothing.
In Little Tokyo, there is a shop that is like a Sofubi shop, and it's unreal.
Yeah.
It's just
we ain't got nothing here.
Every crazy kaiju.
It's like you guys, you got Frankenstein's as well over there. Like my buddy,
true.
My buddy actually got me my first Gabra figure from that. It was the YMSF figure.
Oh yeah.
He got me that one. It was my very first Gabra, like the only Gabra figure that was around. And
so
I'm
cool.
just like, fuck, man, like this is cool. I love it. But yeah, no, 100%. But yeah, so that is the hood. That's why, like, the weird shit I'm into, like, that's what I want to go. And I think the Sofubis are right on point with them. It's like,
I think in general, that's one of the best things about the Godzilla fandom is inherently weird, because it is it's a monster fandom, and over the years we've all found our favorite characters within that, whether it is like, you know, me and Manila, or like somebody who just really loves Hedora, or even like this incredible comic book creator Sophie Campbell, who she is about to be on the new Mothra book, the first ever Mothra solo title.
Oh wow!
And with art by Godzilla superstar Matt Frank. And Sophie just came off a really long run on Ninja Turtles. She's incredible. But she just loves Gamera. Like, she has so many Gamera Sofubis, you could just not even believe it.
And I have my eye. I was gonna get it at G-Fest last year, but there we go. Old school Kong right there.
He is.
They had the Nightmare Gamera Sofubi, but it was like $400 to $500, and I'm just like, okay, I'm good.
Dude, I love that old school Kong. He's so funny looking. Also, isn't it funny that like all our parents and like, well, I don't know, my parents weren't into this shit, but like I know a lot of people's parents were, and like grandparents, you know, Precious Memories and all those little like tchotchkes. And for our generation, it's just like Godzilla and like superheroes, like this fucking Swamp Thing figure. Like my
always takes my protein shakes, and it drives me.
You can tell he's been drinking them. He's looking chunky.
All he does is drink my protein shakes, and it pisses me off because I have to buy more.
And I'm a supporter of a chunky kaiju. Like I love. That's one thing I do love about Legendary, that I think that they kind of brought back into vogue, or at least back into the conversation, which was thick Godzilla. You know, like he's chunky, he's huge. Like he's not just you know, a mutated T-Rex who looks slightly different. Like this is an entirely different creature. Like his legs are the size of, you know, 5 skyscrapers. I really love those. I love the character designs that they do, and I think they've done a really cool job of introducing both their own kaiju, and then like obviously the Titans that we know that they have licensed from Toho. Yeah, and obviously now, I mean, last year we got the Godzilla DC crossover, and now we're gonna have Godzilla Marvel crossover this year, which is kind of blowing my mind. I never saw that coming. So it's kind of crazy to have gone from doing Batra when Godzilla was still relatively niche, like in the comic shop, and it was more of the collectors and the fans, to now it's like this book, my book came out last year, and then this year is going to be like an even crazier year for Godzilla, with like Marvel is putting like really big talent on those books too. Like they see that obviously as, I wondered as soon as they reprinted the old Marvel Godzilla comics, I was like,
what they were going to do.
I was like, they definitely are going to find a way that they can do this. And Toho, you know, good for them. They're open to it. They're like, let us make, because the DC one was with Legendary, but obviously you still have to, like, Legendary still licensing Godzilla from Toho, you know, so it's like very interesting.
It's awesome because, you know, growing up, you kind of was hush on being a Godzilla fan because it was so goofy, but now, you know, Godzilla's dog walking everybody in DC. About to dog walk everybody in Marvel again.
So
I
Again.
love because a lot of people have these conversations about, could Goku
Oh
beat
yeah.
Superman? Could Batman beat Deathstroke?
Mm-hmm.
Could Deathstroke beat Captain America and all of these things? And no one ever put Godzilla in those
No, because
conversations.
they just stand on you. But I do think I think that's the ultimate challenge. And Brian, who did the DC Godzilla crossover, he's done a lot of Legendary comic stuff. He's great. I've done a couple of panels with him. He's a real great guy. He was the writer on that, and I think the amount of writing chops that you need to have to find a way to make that believable, that Godzilla wouldn't just fuck everyone's shit up like instantly. That's a big challenge, man. Like, because we know the scale of Godzilla is like he could just come out of the ocean and just squash Metropolis and it's over. But you have to find a way to tell this story and make it seem like it could be done. I think seeing someone like Spider-Man fight Godzilla, which is one of the issues they're doing, I think that's like a really cool idea because I want to see him like swinging off of Godzilla's fins. I want to see him like webbing his eyes closed or something. Like there's so much potential there. Like, I mean, I would just die to write one of those books, like where the superhero is getting to fight Godzilla. That would just be the coolest. But knowing me, I'm a little guy now, so I done Doug, I done Manila. If I was gonna do it at Marvel, they would probably be like, Rosie, do Squirrel Girl and Godzilla, and I would be like, yes, I will. She's technically the most. I'm like, she's the most powerful person. She's beaten Galactus, so she could do it. But also, she'd probably just team up. She'd probably just team up with him because I'm a Godzilla team up guy. I don't want to fight.
I like it. I support that. I'll support that.
I love how in the beginning of the DC book that Godzilla one-shot Superman. Superman is
out
on ICU for the rest of most of the comic.
And he was just trying to propose to Lois as well. Like he was like,
oh yeah, yes,
dude, he's having a bad day. Like, so that was actually really an interesting issue for me because I write at DC.com. Which is like the official DC Comics website.
Wow.
And I write a lot of like historical pieces and recommendations. And the guy who edits the website, Tim Beadle, he's really great. And there's a roster of just fantastic writers there. And I was going to write about that issue because obviously I'm a Godzilla head. I didn't know what to write about it because I was like, it's like Godzilla doesn't have lore in the DC universe. And like, this is an out of continuity story because Superman's not married to Lois. And I was like, what can I do? So I decided that I would do I was like a gossip writer. Like I was like a gossip writer who worked in Metropolis writing like gossip pieces about what happened in the paper. And then that ended up being like such a popular idea that now I do it monthly. I have like a monthly gossip column.
Nice.
And that was all because of Godzilla.
Crazy.
And I always just write and gossip about like what it would be like if you lived in DC and you had to deal with like your car insurance is like fucked because Superman keeps throwing your car at Godzilla, and like how pissed off you would be, and so it's like the woman I write it as Rosie Knight, but it's like a character in the DC universe. So that's been really fun, and that was awesome. That was because of Godzilla.
Awesome.
You know, I
so cool.
I have a pitch for you,
okay,
Rosie.
I'm ready.
I'm kind of curious, and I'm being semi-serious to see if like you would actually like do something with it and this came from all three of us. So one day we were talking about it, and we kind of gave Godzilla and the other kaijus a Simpsons approach.
Love it.
So they're all human-sized and whatever. Each. And you could have let's say Godzilla is Homer Simpson, Mothra is Marge, Minya is Bart, and whatever. And then we were kind of going through okay, well, who would a cop be? What about the convenience store? This and that.
Dude, I'm telling that's a good idea. That's all I'm going to say about
it.
You. Also,
we have a mission.
Guys, you have a mission. Also, very, very doable way of doing that is doing stop motion with action figures. That's a really good way to do it because all you need is a little set, a little sofa, a little a few little places they can go. And then you just, do a little bit of animation.
Listen,
you guys could do the voices, I'm saying.
Rosie, if you want to steal the idea, we're all for it.
You know what?
Just in the liner notes,
what I will say What I will say is that you guys are definitely on the same page as other creators, because I do know, not in that specific way where it's more of like a family sitcom, but I know people who have pitched like slice of life Godzilla, like trying to do these different humanized versions of them, trying to find ways to like mine comedy or do like younger versions of them for kids. I think there's something inherently interesting about the way that we like project onto the monsters and how we see them, like Minyo's Bart, like is he cheeky, is he rude, like how does he behave? I think that those stories are like really, really inspirational to us for some reason. Like we're always thinking about like how would it be if I lived next to Godzilla? Like there's something about the human element and the idea that you could be their friends or that they would exist in like a normal world that I think really speaks to like a lot of creators. So I'm just saying that's a good idea. Also as well, you could just make a little zine. I love to make a zine.
That's
I
true.
got a lot of kaiju zines. Make a little zine about the different characters. Start it off there. Also, I'm saying those the YouTube animation space of people doing like stop motion with action figures. My nephew watches more Transformers in that format than any Transformers canon, even though he watches that too. But he wants to watch like somebody who's made a video and told their own story about it, which I find very interesting because I feel like when we were growing up, it was always about watching the real story, the narrative, learning the lore, learning the canon. It's kind of transitioned now where a lot of these things like Five Nights at Freddy's, another thing my nephew and niece love, is like a lot of the lore and the canon was actually fan created via songs, or they love them to make songs via video games that are fan games, and then they kind of get, you know, brought into the real canon. And I feel like it's just a different way of experiencing stories, and I love that kids are doing it. It's like, it's very cool, and they're probably making tons better stuff than we're like ever gonna see on Netflix or whatever, because they're just like just vibing.
Yeah.
I'm so envious because our last episode we had Lost Utopian Films on that did the Shelter 54. I have nobody to bounce my ideas off of because I show it to my family and they're just like, "Oh, that's awesome," but or I'll send a story to somebody and they're like, "Okay, I'll get to it," and never read it. So it's hard to break into like, okay, is this good or not? Most of the time it's just rattling around in my head. But the last two, you and Terrell, that we had on last episode has really lit a fire. And
well, I'm going to tell you the number one thing to do that I learned, because I used to always be like floating my ideas past someone or self-editing a lot, you know, like you write something and then you edit in the page and you spend like a month editing the one page instead of just writing the next thing. Just like for yourself, just like finish it. And then you can get feedback. You can get whatever else, whether it's like a script or a pitch or an idea. But just like once you start finishing stuff, you're going to be feeling like really, really, really good. You're going to be like, okay, well, I finished this like short screenplay that I would do, or I finished this 1-page pitch for a comic that I can send to people or whatever. And you start to feel like you can do stuff. That's basically what happened with me with comics, is like I started by just making comics like with my friends. And then it was like, okay, can I do a 3-page script for someone else that they want to have me do a backup in an issue?
Right.
Yeah, but I got to finish it. And then that goes to 20 pages, and then it goes to 40 pages, which is what Batra was. And then with Manila is 100 pages. It was originally going to be longer, but we cut it down. I wanted to make sure Oliver would get the most page rate possible. So we cut down the pages so the budget would go further. And yeah, that was like, when I was looking down 100-page script, I was like, oh my god, like I'm never, like I don't know how I'm gonna fit everything I need in, like I don't know how I'm gonna fit all the characters in, including the ones I forgot. And but that memory of like, okay, well, you finished other stuff before, so I think finishing is like, I'm currently behind my Riverside video is my screenplay that I'm currently working on that is absolutely not finished because I'm constantly self-editing. But my rule this year was I'm going to do like 1 page a day, and then I can go through it afterwards and fix the parts that suck or whatever, you know. So I think like it's good you're feeling inspired. Also, do you guys not have just like make a group chat and just send it to these guys? I just bother in my friends all the time with my ideas. So I'm like, you guys should just have like a Godzilla group chat. You never know, man. These fandom spaces that we're in. I mean, the first book I ever got asked to write a long time ago, I finished it, never ended coming out because of some shenanigans. But that book was like called Fierce Heroines. That book I only got from just doing fandom stuff, from doing like writing about characters and writing about like comics history and writing about movies and shit like that. And the editor was like, hey, you seem like you know your stuff, like let's make this book, and I think now I'm lucky enough that after doing a lot of Godzilla stuff and being in the space, other people are coming to me and being like, oh, well, about Godzilla, like how can you bring that to this project, or how can you like be doing something different, maybe non-fiction, something about like the history of kaiju or whatever. So I think just like putting yourself out there like you guys are already doing is like a really good start.
Yeah. Well, thank you for that. Appreciate that.
Thank you.
And anything else? This has been an amazing.
I know. I'm like, sorry guys, we've been on here for like 2 hours just yapping. Like, I'm sorry.
Hours. We just want to make sure we're not taking up time.
No, I appreciate you guys. I should go to the comic shop, which is over in the craft market. So it's good timing. But I appreciate you guys, and let's definitely get Oliver on here too, because that would be really
awesome. We're gonna absolutely work on that one. Who wants to send us out? Tony, is that you? Who is that you doing today?
I'll do it. Since Ramon is still under the weather.
No, I got it.
Ramon, you got it?
He's gonna do it.
All right, Ramon got it. Let's go, Ramon. Give us your best.
Well, lovely listeners of United Kaiju Podcast, once again, we appreciate you coming on to the show, whether you're listening to us on the podcast or watching on YouTube. Rosie, we gratefully appreciate you coming on this channel and talking to us throughout this amazing episode. It's such an honor to have you on, and we appreciate you from the bottom of our hearts.
Oh, I appreciate you guys.
Go check out her amazing comic, Godzilla's Monster Island Summer Camp. Definitely an excellent story with amazing art. So go check that out. But if you listen to this, man, you did a fantastic job with the art, and you killed it, man. So much praise to you. Rosie, again, thank you so much for coming on. We appreciate you very, very much for coming on to the episode. And to close it out, Rosie, I will pass on the torch to you.
Thank you. First of all, thank you guys for having me. I am so passionate about the Godzilla fandom space. I feel very lucky to be a part of it. I appreciate all of the support that you guys have given us, especially with this weird story. I love that the fandom is like so welcoming to people, even if they just love Manila or they just love a random King Kong movie they saw at the cinema like 2 years ago. And I feel very honored. And yeah, you can find the book. You can get it at your local library. It is on Hoopla now, which is the library app. If you have a library card, you can buy it from your local comic shop. We love to support local comic shops. You can buy it from IDW if you want to get a hardcover version with some extra back matter in there. You can find me at Rosie Marks, Marx. That is me everywhere. I am on Instagram and Letterboxd as my main social medias, but I do have Threads and Blue Sky. And you can listen to X-Ray Vision every single week. We usually do 3 to 4 episodes. It's at iHeartRadio, but you can listen to it wherever you get your podcasts. Every single week, me and Jason Concepcion just yapping about movies and TV and comic books and all the things we love.
Beautiful. Awesome. Now, Rosie, you have to bless the episode.
Do I have to say it again?
You do?
Okay.
One. Come on, let's.
I know the phrase. I'm like, I've got to work out how I'm gonna say it. Let's see.
Okay. What you're gonna do is gonna be a surprise. Not to put pressure on, but we had Rashid, wonderful artist and creator. He did it in the Arnold Schwarzenegger accent,
wow, that's incredible.
It was mint.
Okay, I'm gonna do it. I'm gonna do it. The only accent I can really do is like a posh English person, like Mary Poppins. So I'm gonna do it like that. I'm gonna do it like that. Okay. Oh, Daddy's home. Take every night.
Wow. Yes.
So I'm like, I want to do it in like a Godzilla voice, but he doesn't talk, so I can't, guys. Just like a roar, just like a generic roar.
That is home.
That sounds like he's trying to take a shit. Like he's like putting out some mega shit.
You know what, Godzilla? He is caked up. Like he's thick nowadays. So
oh my
god,
it's appropriate. It's appropriate.
Down with the thickness.
He really is.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, we want to thank you so much for listening. Please leave your reviews, comments, likes, subscribes, whatever the fuck you want to do it.
Yeah.
Please, it helps us out. And make sure you follow Rosie and all her platforms and any of our guests, because we want to make sure you guys are supporting everybody here, because that's what this community is all about, supporting each other. I don't care if you don't like Gabra. You shouldn't care that I do like Gabra. Why? Because we're all in this for the same fucking reason. We love Godzilla. So once again, we want to thank Rosie for coming on in. Make sure you check out Godzilla Monster Island Summer Camp at your local comic book shop or wherever. And once again, as always, stay united. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Great job, guys.
Great job,
Beautiful.
guys.